Hello everybody and welcome. My name is Joseph Plant. I am the Permaculture Manager and Food Security Manager for the Centre for Sustainable Development. My background is I have a degree in agriculture and management. I also have a background in forestry and management and landscape design. It's been a great pleasure to teach these wonderful human beings up here. The students have been wonderful. They've actually really got stuck into some of the things that we've been doing, which you're just about to find out. And it's my great pleasure not just to introduce the permaculture research of this year, but also my co-advisor and also legend Lee Schmidt.
Good afternoon, everybody. How are we doing? I know what you're all thinking. You're saving the best for last. So, but we're really excited to be here. Thank you for your patience. My name is Lee Schmidt, and I conduct research with the Center for Sustainable Development. I also teach a course called Seminar, and I work with our teaching fellows. This year marks my 5th year at the Island School and my 19th year teaching. This research project, in many ways, is just kind of an amalgam or an accumulation of all my passions, whether it's nutrition and eating well, to educating others, to thinking about building sustainable communities. And where's Maxie? Where's Maxie? Maxie, I'm going to steal a phrase from him. He always says that it takes a village to raise a child. And I think we'd be remiss before we pass the mic over, because we should probably have about another 20 or 30 folks up here with us as far as this research endeavor. It really takes a village to put on a CSD-based research project. And I'd be remiss not to acknowledge folks like Jaquel in the back, and our kitchen staff, to Johnny and Joseph and Walter, our farm team, to folks like Dorothy and Chelsea, who helped navigate these old folks through the nuances of social media. So we're incredibly indebted to all your support for this. It was truly a team effort. And with that, permaculture, let's take it home.
Hi everyone, we're the Permaculture Research Cohort for the Spring 2018 semester, and the title of our project is Planting Seeds of Sustainability on the Island School campus. I'm Maeve Goodrich.
I'm Susanna Cabot.
I'm Isabel Cullen. I'm Nora Berdier.
I'm Calvin Mahe.
I'm Kate Posick.
And I'm Ezra Stern.
So it's the last presentation of the day. I'm sure everyone's pretty antsy by now, but just a quick show of hands, just to poll the audience. Who here is hungry? That is fantastic, because we're going to be talking about food today. Permaculture, by definition, is the development of sustainable agricultural ecosystems intended to be sustainable and self-sufficient. Under that larger umbrella of permaculture, we have two particularly salient terms, food security and food shed. Food security is the state of having reliable access to healthy and nutritious food, and a food shed is a geographic region that produces the food for a given population. It's analogous to a watershed in that it traces food patterns in a certain region. The term permaculture was initially coined in the 70s, and as a permaculture research group, we operate under the 12 principles and 3 ethics of permaculture. The 3 ethics are care for the earth, care for the people, and fair share. And the 12 principles range from producing no waste to catching and storing energy.
So globally speaking, the food system is highly imbalanced. Production, distribution, and consumption all depend on each nation's access to efficient and modern technology. Therefore, smaller and poorer nations are at higher risk of being food insecure because they do not have the means to access this modern technology that can produce healthy and nutritious food. This also means that in these poorer nations that there are higher rates of malnutrition and obesity. So as I just alluded to, the food system is not as effective as it could be. And this is an issue because by 2050, it is expected that there will be 10 billion people on the planet. That is around 3 billion more than there currently are. And in order to successfully feed the growing population, food production must increase by 60 to 110%. Yeah. However, not only does food production need to hasten, but it also must become more environmentally friendly. Currently, the food production system is the leading cause of loss of biodiversity as well as extinctions, and 70 to 80% of all water withdrawals globally. It is also to blame for 15 to 28% of all greenhouse gas emissions. So again, that's around a quarter of all greenhouse gas emissions, which is a lot. So not only do we need to hasten food production, but we also need to make it more environmentally friendly.
So moving on to the Bahamian food shed, the Bahamas is an archipelago located over here, and it's currently classified as a food desert. A food desert is a geographic area in which it is difficult to have access to affordable and good quality food. The Bahamas imports $1 billion worth of food annually to the Bahamas, and it's very hard to grow your own crops in the Bahamas because the soils are agriculturally poor. Only 1% of the land in the Bahamas is arable. Another issue the Bahamas faces is called the Bahamian triple burden, which is a term coined by Alison Carpin, a Fulbright scholar on Eleuthera, and it's the combination of overnutrition, undernutrition, and micronutrient deficiencies, and they all exist in the Bahamas. We also are more than 90% food insecure, and that can be a huge problem when dealing with major crises on the islands. We're also a product of our own environment, and every week we get shipments of food from the Rocksound docks on Tuesdays, and if there were a major crisis, we would be food rationing in just 2 weeks.
So as mentioned before in the aquaponics presentation, the island school imports 89% of its food, so 11% comes from the archipelago of the Bahamas. So of that 89%, we import on average about 90 tons of food per year, and a majority of that food comes from Bahamas Food Service, which is a subsidiary of Cisco based in Nassau. So here at the island school, we have an aquaponics system, which at certain times of the year generates 100% of our leafy greens. And in addition, we have a model farm that demonstrates permaculture principles and our island school campus, which is designed to be agriculturally sustainable. So throughout the semester, our group has been studying a wide variety of research themes that fall under the umbrella of food sheds, which include geology and soils, the study of botany, and animal husbandry. And also in recent weeks, we've also been harvesting from our farm. So through studying these research themes, visiting local Lutheran farms, and conducting research at our own island school farm, we've been studying how we can increase food security here at the island school.
Here are our 4 research essential questions. How do we feed ourselves? What are the true costs, economic, social, environmentally, to successfully growing food on campus? For the long term, what is the best and most logical uses of our open spaces? And what is the best way to communicate scientific ideas and our message regarding food security in the 21st century? These are the questions that the permaculture team are tackling into. Our methods are the following. Planting crops. We plant different types of vegetables, from carrots and beets to onions and peppers, in the ELC roof and the farm. We add soil amendments such as biochar, fertilizer, compost into the soil, which provides nutrients for them. Another method is animal husbandry. We raise and take care of animals such as chickens, ducks, and pigs in the farm. They produce animal waste, which helps fertilize the soil. And our last method is social outreach. We use social platforms such as Facebook, Instagram, and the blog to spread a message about food security. Today you'll be having a local meal which the permaculture have put together, and Azra will later talk about.
One of the main projects our permaculture team has been working on this semester is creating 6 student-written blogs that we've posted to the CSD webpage. The blogs just encapsulate all of the work we've been doing on a weekly basis. This first graph, the x-axis represents the number of days. So the first one would be May 10th and then all the way to May 16th. And then the y-axis is the number of viewers per day. So the first spike in the data occurs just after the blog was posted to the CSD webpage, and the second spike in the data occurs after we had shared the blog to our CSD Instagram and Facebook pages. The second graph shows the number of viewers per each state, and our blog has reached over 42 countries, mainly the US, UK, and the Bahamas, but also Nigeria, Cambodia, and Indonesia. In terms of campus planning and design, we have been working this semester on 461 square meters of land. We've spent roughly 488 hours with the farm team planting and taking care of this land. And in terms of water, we have 4 spigots that operate 2 at a time at a maximum of 600 gallons per hour, which is about 10 gallons per minute. And in the 93 hours we've spent manually watering this land, we've used over 112,000 gallons of water. For our local meal, we've been collaborating with the kitchen team here at the Island School, and every ingredient for our meal has traveled a grand total of 205 miles, which is extremely rare for any meal, especially one in the Bahamas. But to put that into the perspective, a regular US household meal travels roughly 1,500 miles to end on your table. This meal is on par with, in terms of cost, with a regular imported Island School meal because local farmers charge the same as the Bahamas food service.
Now that we have all of this data, we have to decide what to do with it. The first step is planning our campus. Here you can see an orthomosaic of the Cape Eleuthera Island School. As the permaculture team, we've focused more on the parts surrounding the CSD, including the orchard. The part circled in blue is the part that we've already worked on, whereas the area in red is what we've been researching what to do with. So the first step is creating a crop rotation. We'll be dividing this red sector into smaller sectors and planting different kinds of crops at different points in the year. We'll also allow the land to be fallow at certain points to let it rest. We'll also include an integrated animal arable system. This means that we'll let the ducks and the chickens on the land to fertilize the soil in between planting different kinds of crops. There are, however, some barriers to entry, mostly irrigation and labor. Irrigation, because we're on an island where water can be a scarce resource, and labor, because it will require a lot of manpower. Now, since we have all of this data, we need to find ways to let people like you know what we're doing. We do this with the question in mind, how do we reach more local growers and Bahamian residents? The first step can be through local partnerships. Earlier this year, we signed a deal with the University of the Bahamas, and we'd like to keep going with that and develop more partnerships. We can also do it through social media and our blog. Like Kate said, we wrote 6 student blog posts, and we also posted to the Island School Instagram, the CSD Instagram, and the Island School and CSD Facebook pages. Finally, we'd like to reach local schools, growers, and co-ops to let them know in person what we've been doing. Now that we've done a lot of our research, we need to keep our 3 local food goals in mind. We'd like to incorporate more local food into our dining services. This means buying more food from local growers and growing more food on our campus to reduce our carbon footprint, put more dollars into the local economy, and support local farmers. We'd like to increase agricultural intensification and crop diversity on campus. This means using more efficient and modern technology and also planting different kinds of crops. This year we planted crops that have never before been grown at the Island School. We'd like to finally address the seasonality of local produce. If farmers are planting one crop in one season, we'd like to still buy food from them, but use new technology to grow it in the off-season to become more sustainable. Finally, after this, you guys will have a lunch that is mostly all local food. The large ticket items like the pork and tilapia have been grown on campus and harvested here. They've traveled 0 miles to get to the table. Secondary items like the salads have traveled only 136 miles. Finally, the other items have traveled 69 miles, leading to a total of 205 miles. Like Kate said, this is much less than your average American meal. So with that, have a great lunch. Here's our literature cited. We'd like to acknowledge our research advisors, Joseph Plant and Lee Schmidt, the Island School Farm Team, Johnny, Joseph, Nathaniel, and Walter, the Island School Communications Team, Chelsea, Dorothy, and Emmy, Team CSD, and the kitchen team for their great help. Do we have any questions?
Yes. Thought about doing a survey amongst like the community of your students and maybe families, so when you go back and say, how, what habits, basically habits change. So in a month from now, asking families, are you buying more local produce when you get home? Something like that, so you could carry this on.
So the question is, would we think about doing a survey for students and maybe students' families about whether they'll continue to eat more sustainably? And we haven't talked about that, but that would be a great idea that we could talk about as we go on. And permaculture will not end with us. Future research students will get the chance to participate in the permaculture research. We're actually the third semester of students that have done it, so permaculture does not end here.
Yes.
Have you developed or considered using drip irrigation to sort of use water more efficiently? Are you using just cisterns? Are you using rain barrels to feed the water? Just wondering how you think about conserving water while still using it as you're developing new areas or land that's used for farming.
So the question is, have we considered using drip irrigation and how can we use water more efficiently? So we do actually use drip irrigation and our water spigots come from wells, but I don't believe we have cisterns set up for the farm, but do you know more about that?
What about rain barrels? Just setting them up to get extra water?
So far, I don't believe we have that. We get our water from the old golf course at what used to be the Cape Eleuth River Resort here. There are 350 wellheads, and we've only tapped into 6 of them. So luckily for us, water is not that scarce like it can be in other parts of the island. In the future, though, we would like to increase the availability of water and tap into more of those wellheads. A large problem is the water is pumped on a solar generator, on a solar-powered pump, and so if the sun decides not to shine one day, or if it's raining, we can't pump any water. Also, it can only pump, I believe, 6 gallons a minute.
Yes.
Were you integrating your efforts with hydroponic and aquaponic mixing? And like they said that 99% of the lettuces that we're eating we haven't yet, but the salad is 139 miles cabbage, like carrots. And how are you integrating?
Yeah, so the question is, how are we kind of working together with other research teams such as aquaponics, and also how they said that 99% of the greens come from aquaponics. So the salads does include a lot of other toppings, and we get that from Island Farm, which is another local farm on Eleuthera. And so we've collaborated a little bit with aquaponics. Specifically, we filleted some tilapia, which you guys will be eating for this meal, and there is a lot of overlap between our studies, yeah.
Yes.
What have been your efforts in working with the local schools with these projects? You had mentioned.
So we haven't worked that much with local schools. We did volunteer and bring seaweed fertilizers to the local Deep Creek Primary School. That wasn't a part of our permaculture research. That was more part of our island school kind of charitable research, outreach. And we more coordinate with local growers and co-ops. For example, there's a place on Eleuthera called One Eleuthera, and they're more of a trade school with an attached farm. So we met with them to see what we could do to help them and also to help us. So in the future, I guess you could call that a school, but in the future we'll be sourcing a lot more of our local vegetables from them, and we're also working to, I believe, get goats on the island to incorporate more animal husbandry at a local level.